So I'm going to talk about my work, which is yoga, dance, and urban activism. We are today living in a melting pot, and it is becoming increasingly important to share how we deal with our given conditions. My home is New Delhi. I am primarily a practitioner, and I engage in plural practices, namely yoga, dance theater, and urban activism. The common denominator in my three practices is the body. Body as a medium of an inner practice of reconfiguration, as in yoga. Body as a medium of connection, correspondence through dance. And finally, the body in the city, and in this case, an Indian city. In this short presentation today, I'll first give a very brief history of yoga and Indian dance, talk a little bit about the concept of the body in traditional Indian terms, and then touch upon how attention may be cultivated through the physical practice of yoga. I will also share some video clips of my dance work and urban activism. Both yoga and Indian dance were revived and reconstructed in the second half of the 19th century as part of the Hindu reform movement, which propagated a high form of Hinduism based on scriptures such as the Vedas and the Upanishads. This high religion looked down upon physical practices of hatha yoga as well as dance, which was at that time performed by traditional temple dancers called Devadasis. The reformers viewed the practices of both these marginal liminal subcultures as obscure, obscene, immoral, superstitious, repulsive, and most of all, irrational, both emblematic and responsible for India's moral and spiritual backwardness. Political and spiritual leaders of very high international caliber, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Dr. Annie Besant, and even Mahatma Gandhi advocated this reform movement. As you all know, Vivekananda played a very important role in introducing Hindu philosophy to the Western world. In 1896, he wrote, open quotes, that anything that is secret and mysterious in these systems of yoga should be at once rejected on the grounds that mystery mongering weakens the brain, close quote. Thus began the disenfranchisement of the mysterious and mystic traditions of India, which included dance and yoga. For centuries, hatha yoga was seen as an obscure, mostly male subculture that was outside society and at variance with the life and aspirations of a common householder. The yogi was seen as this self-torturing outcast with magical powers who was dirty, naked, perverse, yet very potent and therefore to be feared. It was in the beginning of the 20th century that yoga as we see it today was fashioned as a form of physical culture, cleansed of its obscure and secretive practices. This revisioning and reconstruction of yoga was directly influenced by the wave of muscular Christianity in Victorian Britain, which connected physique and spirituality and resulted in the radical reform of athletics and sports in public schools throughout Britain in the second half of the 19th century. Inspired by this project of gentleman making, the Maharaja of Mysore commissioned the opening of a gymnasium for the physical training of the royal princes. And in 1933, he added to it a yoga shala, or a yoga school, that was to be head by none other than T. Krishnamacharya, who is today recognized as the father of modern yoga. He being the teacher of B.K.S. Iyengar, the Iyengar school, Patabi Joyce, who started the Ashtanga tradition, my own teacher, Sri T.K.V. Desikachar, who started the Vinyoga tradition. Vinyoga tradition comes from him, and Indira Devi. The history of Indian dance also follows a similar trajectory. The sacred erotic Devadasis turned into objects of scorn by the end of the 19th century and was seen as a blot on Hindu civilization by the reformists and the Western-educated Hindu elite. These pleasure women or courtesans, who for centuries had singularly remained the repositories of both dance and music in India, were now seen as the agents of moral corruption. The Sakubai, who through the seductions of their song, dance, and their wayward ways, would suck the spiritual and physical strength of the young men of the nation. Rukmini Devi Arundale, the pioneer dance revivalist, took it upon herself to save the dance from the traditional community that was rapidly losing its standing and artistic space within the emerging modern nation. In 1935, that's 2 years after the Yogashala was started, she set up Kalakshetra, a school dedicated to the teaching of the dance of the Devadasis, which was by then rechristened as Bharatanatyam. And this was started in the precincts of the Theosophical Society in Madras. Whereas the new yoga taught at the Yogashala at the Mysore Palace valorized the connection between physical strength and moral character of the young men of India, the new Indian dance celebrated not the eroticism, but the spirituality of the dance. Under the new vision of an emerging nation, the men had to be upright and moral, and the women proper and virtuous. The men had to be athletic and strong, and the women had to be refined and demure. And this project of making proper Indian ladies and gentlemen would be fulfilled through the means of indigenous but reformed practices of dance and yoga. In this way, both traditions would be saved from the clutches of the terribly gone astray, mystery-mongering traditional practitioners and preserved and domesticated by and for the middle classes and put to new use in the construction of good and proper citizenry. It was a win-win situation that spawned a win-win narrative for modern India, of which I am a part. As a practitioner of both these physical disciplines, I am viscerally implicated in this win-win narrative, and I strongly feel that I'm not free to outgrow this narrative till I have been able to adequately address its underside, if not puncture it. Because what for me lies within this crack is integral to the freedom of being, critically vital and deeply satisfying. My work thus is almost always self-referential. That is, it makes a comment upon or hovers upon the vicinity of dance itself. Before I share my dance work through video clips, I would like to briefly talk about some fundamentals of yoga. Yoga is the physical practice of making the mind attentive. In yoga, energy and attention are synonymous. An unfocused mind is indicative of dissipated or scattered energy. A yogi is one whose energy is contained within the body and whose mind is absorbed in the present moment. According to yoga, the mind cannot reach the mind. It can only be arrived at through the materiality and the chemistry of the body. The chemistry of the body is made up of two opposing drives, one being the slothful tamas and the other being the aggressive rajas. Through the physical practice of yoga, that must necessarily involve the working in tandem of body, breath, and mind, the two drives may be tempered. That is, the sluggish can be energized and the aggressive can be exhausted. When the two opposing drives are adequately awakened and appeased, the chemistry of the body is balanced and becomes conducive to the surfacing of the third condition, that of the sattva, or the pure balanced state of deep relaxation, equipoise, and clarity. This deep relaxation also works on deflating the tendency of the slippery mind that can involuntarily vacillate one moment in the past and the next second into the future. Thus, the cultivation of fine attention, which is intrinsically interdependent upon the mindful absorption of energy, is the primary goal of yoga. Yoga practiced anywhere in the world today ends with the mandatory shavasana, or the corpse posture. This is the after period of a practice, a period of repose and rest, when after going through a dynamic and physically challenging routine of mindful asana and pranayama, the practitioner lies down in a still pose, not to only recover, but also to allow for the body to re-assimilate and reabsorb the fruits of its own effortful practice. This lying down in a state of non-being at the end of a rigorous session of, this lying down in the state of non-doing at the end of a rigorous session of doing is the most important part, if not the very purpose of the practice. In my classes, I often describe this moment of repose in this way. If we shake a blanket or a rug, it throws out dust particles that fly out into the air. And if then we lay the same rug down upon the floor, these dust particles slowly resettled upon the rug, but they resettle down in a new configuration. Shavasana is thus the passive state of an energized/exhausted body, which is being repatterned through the reabsorption of energy dust, one grain at a time. At this point, I would like to point out three important things. A, that the yoga practice comprises of both voluntary action and involuntary absorption. B, that this experience of repose and reabsorption can be deeply satisfying and comforting. When this happens, the mind experiences timelessness, space, akasha, ether, infinity. And in this physically orchestrated experience lies the seed of time becoming elastic. And C, that such a moment of heightened absorption can not only be stilling and deeply satisfying for the practitioner, but it is also visible to the viewing eye. A body that is absorbed in the moment is a visible body, visible to the naked eye. I would even go a step further to say that it is not only a visible body, but it's a transmitting body, a body that elicits attention, as well as sympathetic identification. And I attempt to incorporate this technique of what I call presence building into my performance work. I will now share a few video clips of my work and then talk to you about my urban activism. And for this, I'm going to ask Holger to help me because I'm completely incapable of a few things here. So the first piece that I'm going to show you is a section from collaborative work that I made with a Japanese dancer called Hiroshi Miyamoto. And it's basically based on a padam, which is a genre of Devadasi music. The next a piece that I'll share with you is called Dravyakaya. I'll have to kind of skip through the video a little bit. Quickly to tell you about the piece, it was, as you know, that most Indian dance is based on mythical stories. A few years ago, I was asked to make a piece on the Ramayana, but Rama has become a very problematic figure in India because he's kind of become the brand ambassador of right-wing Hinduism. And there's been a lot of political unrest around a temple/mosque under which they thought Rama's temple was. So they demolished the mosque. Since 1992, when the mosque was demolished, I stopped dancing Rama, so to speak. But in 2008, I was asked to make a piece, and I made this piece. And I based it on the objects or the props found in the Ramayana. So there are two sections I'm going to show you. One is a section of the bow. So the icon of, like, Rama is, the emblem of Rama is a bow. So he's a carrier of a bow. And the second piece, I'll talk to you when I come to it. So it's Dravyakaya, and Dravya means object, Kaya means body. So it's the object-body relationship in it. So we can go to. So the first piece is on the bow, and the second piece is, the second section is on the something called the Valkala Vastra, which is a it's one of the tenderest scenes in the Ramayana. Sita and Rama have been banished by the stepmother to go into a forest. I think if you're ready, I'll show it first. My co-dancer in this is Sudeep Kumar Putyaparampat, and some of you know him because he danced right here in Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the piece that Ben and I made together. Ben Ripe, who's sitting here, I think. Yeah. The next piece is on Valakalavastra. The scene is that Sita and Rama have been banished to the forest by the stepmother, and she wants to humiliate them, and she asks them to wear bark garments, garments which are the most lowly garments, so they have to take off their princely silks and wear these garments. And Sita has never seen anything like that before, so when she's asked to wear it, and she's asked to wear it in public apparently. I mean, she's in the court, she's standing, so this is a very strange situation. She's standing in the court and she's given this garment to wear, and she doesn't know what to do with it. So she's completely standing there exposed, so to speak, and she doesn't know, and the garment falls off from her hands because she doesn't know how to tie it. And at that point, Rama comes to her and helps her wear it. So it's a very, very tender scene of Rama and Sita, Rama helping Sita to wear this garment, and in full public view. And it's made of bark, so I'm exploring bark or hay or the natural fiber in this. I'm told I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly show you a video of my urban activism. It just talks about it, so it very succinctly puts it into, it'll be quicker if I put the video on, and as opposed to talking about it. We call it the Power of Seeing project because we feel that people in Indian cities have become so inured and so conditioned to kind of turn a blind eye to so many things that are chaotic around them. So it is a way, it's an exercise to slowly bring back focus to things which need attention or which need appreciation. But one thing at a time. We have started this project with children especially, where they choose one street element which is very, very close to where they live or where they go to school, and they adopt it. And adoption means that they just begin to observe it, that's all. We facilitate their observation over a few months, and after 6 months they have a little photo document which becomes a very telling document because it tells the story of one single street element and its wear and tear, its usage. So it has a little history. And these histories become very, very significant because it tells you about the ground reality. And once they have started to collect this data, so to speak, they begin to compare it. They mount an exhibition and they share the information that they've collected with the other school children. And then there is a inter-school exhibition. What is interesting is that very, very soon they begin to realize that there are patterns of governance, of usage that need, so it's not, these are not isolated incidents that need to be corrected or paid attention to, but these are patterns that need to be changed. So these patterns that emerge, they also bring about some observations, and some of the first few observations that they have made are A, that there's a huge divide between the inside and the outside. We live very beautifully in very well organized, beautiful homes, but the outside is chaotic. Number two, that Indian cities are not human friendly. So the realization that Indian cities are planned and made and designed, not keeping the human body as the central point of reference. So keeping these primary observations in mind, they begin to review the city and reimagine the city and re-envision the city. And for this, they partner with the authorities because they are still children. They partner with the authorities, they share their findings with the authorities. And so in a way, they are kind of doing the grassroots level work for the authorities, surveying for them. So this is the partnership that we are creating between little soldiers, foot soldiers, who are looking around the environment in a very, very detailed manner, one element at a time. And they're sharing their findings with not just the other school children and their peers and their communities, but also with the authorities to bring about effective change. So we actually have a formula. So it's see plus document plus organize equals to change. And so this is in a nutshell the Power of Seeing project that we have facilitated in many Delhi schools. Okay, just to kind of wrap this up, the urban design project that we do, the interventions are not very rare through dance. The interventions that the stuff that children create are educational toys, films, video, so it's not dance as intervention. It's anything that works and anything that speaks as clearly as it possibly can. So for this, they use actually video, a lot of video and photography. With this, I think my time runs out. I have more stuff, lots of more stuff to show, both in dance and actually I even had a clip of what the children have made. But at this point, I'd like to open the house for questions.
Maybe first of all, I would like to thank you very much, and I'm sorry to kind of have to be a bit. The schedule is very tight, but I think you opened up. We got an idea that these different practices you're doing, that they are not only, as the title says, parallel lines, but that they actually begin to interweave. And I think this is a very good example of how they come together, not only through your person, but some of the principles that they actually begin to kind of interfere and to mingle or entangle or whatever would be a proper way of putting this. I think this is a very interesting question. I think we have time for a few comments or questions. I would like to open this up to the audience.
It's going to be about the spirituality of that sort of historical section that you started with, and then to the dance piece with the Japanese artists and you. But I'm so curious about the gendering, of course, across one becomes the physical, the male yoga, and then the sort of feminine in the Devadasi and the dance. But in your work, I'm curious what happens with that, and then in terms of like that very obvious, the strength, the kind of, you know, that takes place in yoga, but also in dance, how that crosses over or interweaves in your performance work, if you could speak to that. And then you juxtapose the Japanese sitting, that sort of straight, beautiful kind of parallel body up and down with your design. So I'm curious about these strands and what you're doing with them and thinking about them.
Well, I must say that what you saw is like just one side of my work. Very often, my work is actually more feminine than masculine, if you're going into gender, because I am obsessed with the padam, which is a love song in the feminine voice. And most of my work revolves around, I'm trying to decode or crack the padam open, which is a feminine voice. I haven't shown you another clip, which is a clip where I've made with two other boys and we are wearing skirts. And it's juxtaposing two narratives, one an imagined narrative of a Devadasi's life, so to speak, or a ghettoized life of a Devadasi, and I'm juxtaposing that with The Maids by Jean Genet. So Devadasi is also, Dasi means maids. Dasi means a maid, a servant. So it's, so I actually work a lot more with the feminine, because it's only through the feminine that I can crack this open, because it's liminal space and a feminine voice. I mean, that's definitely there. And what was the second question about the Japanese and the... Well, it was, you know, we came together. I liked his presence. He was in one of my workshops that I conducted, and I really liked the way he moved, and I liked he had a Zen quality, which I really liked. And I wanted to work with that. And so we spoke a little bit about, you know, where we come. He also has trained in Bharatanatyam a bit. He works with Hari Krishnan in Canada. He's one of his dancers. So there was this whole thing of the geisha culture and the Devadasi culture. And those gestures that we are doing are half geisha, half Devadasi. And the padam is a voice of Devadasis from the 1940s. So.